Hello everyone and welcome back to Carvenus 14. Happy New Year, welcome to 2024, and hopefully this year goes great for every single one of us watching this video. Now obviously I've taken a little bit of a break from my last video for the new year. So yeah, but we're back and we're going to be putting some more Xianyun videos out. So if you guys are excited for some more Xianyun videos talking about all different types of things with her, do like the video and subscribe to the channel because we're going to be covering a lot of Xianyun content because obviously I plan on pulling for Xianyun, maybe making some interesting build showcases, all that stuff. Basically like what I did with Shenhe, except provide a little bit more discussion videos, I think, because I think that's where I fell short, discussion videos with Shenhe. But yeah. Anyway guys, today we're going to be discussing Xianyun and some of the synergies that she has with the catalyst weapons in the game. Now, if you didn't know, I did already do a general overview on Xianyun's kit mixed with what artifacts would be great on her, what weapons would be great on her, and what her best teammates will be for the party and stuff like that. But I kind of want to do some more videos on like more in-depth stuff about which weapons would actually be great on her and which ones not so much. So we're going to go over all of the weapons and basically go over which weapons would actually suit her DPS playstyle only. Now, I will include some support some support options as well. I might not, but there's loads of videos out there already explaining what kind of weapons you can use for her support, and not really a lot of people talking about DPS. And I do know a few people actually do want to try, well, not a few people, but there are a decent amount of people that obviously want to use Xianyun as a main DPS because why would you not, I mean, look at her. So yeah. But anyway, guys, we're going to start from, I think, the 3-star option. I think we'll start off with the 4-star options, really. And then we'll go up to the 5-star options. So, obviously, none of the 3-star options are really amazing. I mean, Twin Nephrite, maybe, because it increases your attack by 12%. And this goes up to, what's it called? This goes up to 20% at level, Refinement rank 5. So, I mean, I guess you could, but it's kind of copium, I'm not going to lie. So, yeah. Anyway, ooh, what is this? Oh, it's only 2 stacks. Unbelievable. And it's elemental mastery as well. That is a shame. That is a very big shame. Oh well, but we're mainly going to look at the weapons that actually have a critical damage or critical rate or attack percent substat, guys. Elemental Mastery wouldn't be bad, but you don't really want to build Elemental Mastery on a character like Xianyun, who doesn't have any Elemental Mastery or is not really meant to support reaction-based teams, to be honest. I mean, she's more of a plunging attack support rather than an actual reaction-based support. She can't really provide enough swirl damage for the team because of the way that her playstyle works. So I would not really advise building Elemental Mastery on her, so we're just going to stay away from those. The Widsith is an obvious choice that people will go to. I mean, it's one of the 4-star weapons that have actually been in the game for the longest. So a lot of you might actually have this weapon and even copies of it. But if you don't, that's actually perfectly fine as well, because this weapon does actually outdamage all of the 5-star weapons in the game, especially at Refinement rank 5, right? At R1, it definitely is comparable, but when it gets to R5, it's just beyond broken. The problem is, though, guys, is that with the Widsith, this weapon has a 10-second duration, but a 30-second cooldown. Yeah. Like, the thing is the buff, there's 2 problems with it. Number 1, you can get one of these 3, and you're not actually guaranteed to get each and every single one of them, right? Yeah. So if you're really unlucky, you could get Elemental Mastery twice in a row or something like that. But on top of that, there's also a 20-second wait time from 10 seconds to 30 seconds in order to actually receive the buff again. And to make things worse, if you kind of mess up the rotation, like you're 1 second earlier or 1 second, like, or if you're like 1 second earlier, right, you won't actually be able to receive the buff because you need to swap off and swap back onto the character in order to actually receive the buff. It's not given to you automatically. So if you do, like, not keep track of the Widsith buff, you might actually lose a lot of damage. And this weapon, guys, without its passive, as a stat stick is actually not as amazing as it could be, yeah, compared to a lot of the other options in the game. So yeah, that's why the Widsith is a great option if you don't have anything else, but you do need to get kind of lucky with the RNG and also have a good mental counter in your head. So yeah, then of course you got the Royal Grimoire. Now the Royal Grimoire is an okay weapon, because it comes with more base attack than the Widsith with an attack percent substat, and you also get increasing crit rate by up to 40%, and when you do actually get a critical hit, you do actually get rid of, you basically reset the counter, so you have to stack it up again. Now, is this a bad option? Actually, no, because number one, you don't need to build as much crit as humanly possible, because if you just have a crit rate helmet, with this weapon, you can get up to, 40%. But of course, one problem with this weapon is that it is inconsistent with the amount of crit you do give, right, with the amount of crit it does give, because if you do crit, you'll reset the counter. Now, there isn't an actual cooldown or an internal cooldown with this weapon, so you can keep ramping it up over and over again, but it is still a little bit inconsistent with, how it does things. But honestly, Royal Grimoire is actually not a bad option. Now, one of the other problems that Royal Grimoire has is it is a Star Glitter exclusive weapon, which means you can only get this weapon from the Paimon bargain shop, right? Which obviously the only currency you can use to buy it is Star Glitters, and the only way you can get Star Glitters is by getting 4 stars or 5 stars on the banners, right? So unless you don't roll like me, if you don't roll like me that much, then you probably won't have enough currency to get this weapon up, right? But if you do roll, then this weapon is actually not a bad option, because it means you just don't need to build as much crit, and you can actually build more crit damage, which is always nice. Yeah. Solar Pearl is, also guys, Royal Grimoire, the passive, it says upon damaging an opponent. So that means it also procs on her plunging attacks as well, which does work really amazingly with Royal Grimoire. Actually, before we do go further, guys, I do need to make one thing clear. Xianyun will play very, very differently, right, from a lot of other DPS Catalyst users out there. Normally, as a DPS, you obviously want to use your normal attacks, maybe weave in some charge attacks depending on your kit, but Xianyun is one of the only characters in the game that actually wants to weave plunging attacks into her kit. I mean, of course, there's characters like Xiao, but Xiao exclusively wants to do plunging attacks with his kit, right? You don't really want to be doing normal attacks. It's not bad, but it is a loss in DPS, right? But with Xianyun, because you only get 8 jumps due to her passive, due to her ultimate, where is it? You'll get 8 stacks, see? Only 8 jumps, basically. So you do want to weave normal attacks in, but you also don't want to just be exclusively doing normal attacks. You also want to weave plunging attacks in as well. So 2 plunging attacks, a normal attack combo, and so on and so forth, basically. Yeah. So because of that, Xianyun will play very damn differently to a lot of the other Catalyst users in the game. So you don't want to exclusively look at normal attack damage. You kind of want to look at plunging attack or anything that can buff that kind of things, those types of things as well. Yeah. Now, the Solar Pearl, normal attack increase elemental skill and burst damage for 20%, and likewise normal elemental skill and burst damage hits increase normal attack by 20%. Now, guys, unfortunately, Solar Pearl isn't really going to be a great option in my opinion, simply because, well, I know what you're thinking. Well, the normal attacks are nice, but it only lasts for 6 seconds, right? Now, here's the problem. Xianyun's elemental skill has a 12-second cooldown, so you're going to have a 6-second downtime, which is about 2 full normal attack combos where your normal attacks just won't deal any damage. Yeah, I mean, of course, you can use rotations and stuff, but a 6-second long rotation, that kind of seems a little bit long to me. Yeah. And I know what you're thinking, right? I mean, the elemental skill, the elemental skill and burst damage goes up by 20%. That's not bad, because, I mean, her elemental skill will deal damage, yeah. But, guys, I need to remind you, if you do think that way, that Xianyun's elemental skill, the only thing that counts as elemental skill damage is her doing the jumps. Right? The bit where she does the jumps, that's elemental skill damage. The plunging attack that she does counts as look, the damage dealt this way from the Cloud Transmorfiguration state, which is her plunging attack, damage dealt this way is considered plunging attack damage, not elemental skill damage. Hence why that part of the weapon's passive doesn't actually work that well. And Xianyun's elemental burst doesn't actually deal a lot of damage anyway in the first place. I mean, whether it it could apply to the Star Wicker's damage, but the Star Wicker's damage isn't even that amazing anyway. So building more damage for the Star Wicker exclusively, even the initial damage, is just not really that worth. So unless you're using Solar Pearl as like an actual stat stick, it's not really a great option. There's definitely better options out there, like the Widsith. Heck, you're probably even better off using the Royal Grimoire, in my opinion. Yeah. Prototype Amber, obviously not. Mappa Mare, no. I mean, you could get, you know, if you trigger an elemental reaction, you could definitely get some more, but it depends on the team that you're going to be running, really. Like, if you're running, like, more of a mono Anemo team, right? Especially with the way that, you know, Xianyun would actually play. The way I've figured out, guys, is I feel as though you kind of want to build Xianyun like you would build, like, a regular, like you would build a Xiao or you'd build a Wanderer. Wanderer and Xiao are Anemo DPSs, like with Xianyun as, like, an Anemo DPS. But the thing is with them, you don't really want to go with a reaction comp, right? Maybe with Wanderer, you'd add in Xingqi or, Yelan, right? But that's because they amplify his normal attacks that way. Sure, with Xianyun, you would be doing that, but if you take a look at Xianyun, she's kind of a mix between Wanderer and Xiao in both the fact that they do normal and plunging attacks, but Xianyun combines both of them. So, you're not really going to be running an elemental reaction-heavy team, right? Especially with Xianyun as the, you know, the one that triggers the actual reaction. Like, at most, you'll probably have, like, a Pyro Swell with Bennett or something like that. So, unless you're doing that consistently, this might not be a bad option, but still, I wouldn't really recommend it over other options. Then there's the Black Glyphs Agate. Now, the Black Glyphs Agate is a good weapon, but the main thing that sucks about the Black Glyph Agate is that it's really bad against opponents that just aren't, like, that just not many opponents. So I feel as though Black Glyphs Agate is not a great weapon if you're fighting 2 opponents or less. Yeah, because in order to fully make use of the passive, it can stack up to 3 times, and you definitely want to make sure it stacks up to 3 times because of how big the damage bonus would be. Two opponents or less, it won't really be amazing, but otherwise, it's not a bad option. And also, let's not forget, guys, that you do need to actually defeat the opponent first in order to give this thing a passive. Otherwise, it's just a stat stick. Widsith gives you the, like, Widsith and Black Glyphs Agate kind of work in opposites if you think about it. Widsith gives you a load of damage early, but then doesn't do anything for you in the long term, but Black Glyphs Agate doesn't do much in the short term, like instantly, but it does get stronger the more opponents you defeat. So Black Glyphs Agate isn't a bad option, but like I said, guys, Black Glyphs Agate is also a weapon that you get from the actual Star Glitter shop, exactly like Royal Grimoire. So unless you roll a lot, then you can go for this weapon. If not, and you do already roll, there's a chance that you could have gotten the Widsith. If you don't have the Widsith, and you do roll in the banner a lot, then Black Glyphs Agate is definitely a good option for you. Then there's the Eye of Perception, which we did discuss this for a brief amount of time, but normal and charge attacks have a 50% chance to fire off a bolt, dealing 240% of your attack as damage. Now, this is actually quite good, right? Because the damage of this weapon scales off of attack, and Xianyun naturally has a lot of attack, because her Ascension stat, guys, if you didn't know, is actually attack percent. Look at that. She does actually have attack percent as a stat, as an actual Ascension passive. So Eye of Perception is actually not a bad option. Of course, this is a gacha weapon again, not really a craftable weapon or anything like that. So it may not be feasible for people to get, but you know, it's a good option if you do have it. Yeah. And its low base attack does actually mean it has a higher attack percentage, you know, increase. Yeah. Wine and Song, no, because what's this called? Hitting an opponent with a normal attack decreases the stamina consumption or sprint by 14%. Additionally, using an alternate sprint increases the attack percentage by 20%. Again, this isn't a bad option if you're looking for energy recharge, but like I said, energy recharge, I mean, you're getting 20% attack, right? You may as well go for something like this, or even a Royal Grimoire, right? Because those two give you attack percent as a stat, whereas this doesn't. So, yeah. And it's only for 5 seconds, whereas these two give you a permanent attack percent increase. Yeah. Frostbearer, I mean, this is the Dragon Spine. This comes from the Dragon Spine weapon. This is just not good, honestly, because the Dragon Spine weapons just suck compared to a lot of other weapons, so I just full stop would not recommend this. Dodoko's Tails isn't a bad option, but like I said, this kind of it plays around charge attacks. And the problem, if you guys didn't know, with Xianyun, is that if you look down here, her charge attack multiplier is 221%. Now, that may look good, but I have checked, and I'm not going to lie, out of all of the 5 stars, the only character that Xianyun beats in terms of charge attack damage is scaling is Baizhu. Everyone else beats her by a decent margin, and even some 4 stars actually beat Xianyun when it comes to charge attacks. I mean, it makes sense for it to be lower, because number 1, she already scales with attack percentage, right? So her normal attack, not base attack, guys, normal attack, like her attack stat without artifacts or anything like that will be higher because of the attack percentage there. So it kind of does make that it equalizes itself out there, but you're not really going to be focusing on charge attacks at all with catalyst users specifically, unless they have a way to like get rid of stamina consumption, like Ningguang, Yanfei, Klee, and even Neuvillette, right? Because stamina consumption for charge attacks for catalyst users is 50, which could be detrimental. Yeah. Now, we will, to be fair, there is another weapon in the game that we will get to about charge attacks, and I'll go over if charge attacks really will be viable for Xianyun later when we do get to that weapon. And we're going to explain it a little bit more in detail. Hakushin Ring, no. I mean, you do get an elemental damage bonus whenever you do an elemental reaction, whenever you do an elemental reaction, but it has to be electro, so you need an electro character. And I'm not going to lie, you don't really want to do that with Xianyun, so this is not really a great option. Oathsworn Eye, nope. I mean, you increase your energy recharge after you use an elemental skill, so realistically, you could have a 100% uptime on this, provided that, you know, it's got 12-second downtime, your elemental skill. So you have a 2-second downtime with this passive, but honestly, it's not a bad option if you really do need energy recharge. I mean, Xianyun does have a 60 energy recharge, 70 energy cost, so it's not actually a bad option if you really do need the energy recharge, right? And it was also an event-exclusive weapon, so some of you may have it, but some of you may not. This is a no. Fruit, no, you don't want this. None of the Sumeru-based weapons are really that good, in my opinion, because they revolve a lot around Dendro, and Animo just doesn't really revolve with Dendro that much. Sacrificial Jade, if you guys do have it, then it's actually a decent option, because crit rate, and when you're not on the field, max HP will be increased, and elemental mastery will be, these effects can be cancelled by the wielder. Oh, okay, so this is more of like a quick swap kind of rotation comp, like you use her for like 10 seconds and then you leave. But then again, elemental mastery and increasing HP, 2 completely useless stats for Xianyun. So the passive isn't really as useful unless you're triggering like a load of swirl reactions, but unless you're using it for that, you may as well use the you know, the substat. But then again, at that point, you may as well just use the Solar Pearl, because the Solar Pearl, yes, it gives you less crit rate, but it gives you a more usable passive if you're going for that. And even then, you still got better options out there. So yeah. Then, guys, there's this Flowing Purity. So after you use an elemental skill, your elemental damage bonus is going to be increased by 8% for 15 seconds. And a Bond of Life worth 24% of your max HP will be granted. Basically, a Bond of Life makes it so that you cannot heal unless you've healed about 24% of your max HP. Yeah. This effect can be triggered once every 10 seconds, and when the Bond of Life is cleared, every 1000 HP cleared in the process will provide up to 2% elemental damage bonus up to 12%. So basically what that means, guys, is out of the 2%, out of the 24%, every 2% you clear of the Bond of Life, right? When that effect goes away, you'll gain up to 12%. So basically, you have up to 20% increased elemental, elemental damage bonus. And this is actually not a bad option either. Why? Because Xianyun is literally a healer. She heals during her burst. So if you use her burst and you have the Flowing Purity, you just get a straight 20%, elemental damage bonus. So this actually is not a bad option at all. Yeah. And with the refinements, this is also a craftable weapon, if you guys didn't know. So with refinements, the passive of this weapon goes even better. In fact, let's actually just see, right? So at R1, it's up to 20%. R2 is 25. This is 30, 35, and 40%. Yeah, up to 40% increased elemental damage bonus. That is really, really nice. Yeah, and the rest of the passive doesn't actually change at all. Yeah. And it lasts up to 15 seconds, which, if you can get your burst back off cooldown, right, guys? If you get your burst back off cooldown, you'll only have 3-second downtime. So it's honestly not even that bad, this weapon. Yeah, so as a craftable weapon, honestly, Flowing Purity might actually be the best one out of all of them. Yeah. Yeah, these two, Prototype Amber and Mappa Mare, were the original craftable weapons, but, you know, Flowing Purity is definitely more of an offensive option. So if you guys don't have any other good catalyst, but you have enough things to craft, like you're pure free-to-play, like you don't have Widsith or Royal Grimoire or Blackcliff's Gate, you don't have any of those options, honestly, going Flowing Purity is actually a decent choice. Yeah. This again, Ballad of the Boundless Blue. This is more of a charge attack, normal attack damage weapon. So yeah, it's still not amazing, but it's not a bad option if you can utilize it. Now, guys, we're on to the 5-star weapons. Now, the 5-star weapons, well, there's a lot of 5-star options that are actually okay and not good for Xianyun. It's really weird, but I'll try and word it as best as possible. So Skyward Atlas, a standard banner 5-star option that's been in the game since the dawn of its days. It increases your elemental damage bonus by 12%. Increases, normal attacks have a 50% chance to earn the favor of the clouds, which will seek nearby opponents for 15 seconds, dealing 160% attack damage. Can only occur once every 30 seconds. Right. So basically, guys, this has a passive where if you use, if you do damage, right, or normal attacks in this case, to opponents for the next 15 seconds, you're basically going to have, like, an effect to, a 50% chance to proc, like, an extra source of damage. Now, it has a 15-second downtime, in which that case, you'll only have the attack percent and the elemental damage bonus. Yeah. Which, it's not a bad option, but to be fair, because this weapon is actually a weapon that's been in the game since the standard banner, you do have a chance to get refinements, which goes up to 24%. So it's not a bad option, guys, but it's a 5-star weapon, and out of all of the 5-star weapons, there's no guaranteed way of getting it, right? Yeah, like with some of the other weapons down here in the weapon banner, which you can go for. So, yeah. Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, this gives you crit rate. When in battle, you gain 8% elemental damage bonus for 4 seconds, and the max stacks is 4 stacks, right? Yeah, and it lasts until the character falls or leaves combat. So basically, guys, what this means is when you're in combat, you'll basically start passively getting this stack, right? Once every 4 seconds, right? So basically, 4 times 4 is 16. So at 16 seconds, you'll gain the full 32% increased elemental damage bonus, right? Permanently until you leave combat or fall. Now, what this means, I'm pretty sure this weapon actually does still stay active even when you're not on the field. So if you swap Xianyun out, right, if you do have this weapon, the passive will still be active. Yeah. So, in fact, there are, like, indicators on the side, like small little crystals that fly next to your character that represent the amount of stacks. So I think this does actually say that because technically you're still in battle, right, it says leave combat, not leave the field. So I think what that means is when you destroy the enemies or you leave and you don't get the combat music and stuff, that's when the stacks will go away. I'm not sure, though. And this weapon has been in the game also since the dawn of days. So the elemental damage bonus can go up to 16%. Now, 16 plus 16 is 32, plus another 16 is 48, plus another 16 is 64. 64% elemental damage bonus is pretty insane, I'm not gonna lie, guys. So, and for a crit rate weapon, that is actually crazy. It goes up to 33% as well, so it's not actually a bad option. Yeah, now we're gonna go on to Memory of Dust. This weapon is only great if you have a shielding unit with you. But the thing is you can run a shielding unit on your team, guys. The thing is because Xianyun's a healer, you don't really have to run a shielding unit on your team. I mean, sure, it would be nice with the interruption resistance, but as a catalyst user, you probably want to keep your distance away from units anyway. So running a shielding unit with Xianyun DPS doesn't really seem optimal, right? But it's an option you can go for, and this weapon will be pretty decent. Arguably around the same power level as these three. Yeah, Jailed Full Splendor, no. Now, guys, we get on to the interesting options. Now, Kagura's Verity. This weapon is very, very interesting. Now, the main reason I say that is because of the effect. You basically gain an effect where after you use your elemental skill, the wielder of this weapon has their elemental skill damage increased by 12% for 3 seconds. When you get all 3 stacks, you will gain a 12% elemental damage bonus to all elements. Now, why is this weapon interesting, guys? Now, if you guys have seen the gameplay, which I'm presuming you have, right? If you guys have seen the gameplay, you'll know that Xianyun has an elemental skill that has 3 uses, or 3 jumps, basically. You jump once, twice, and a 3rd time, and then you do your plunging attack, right? Now, how will this weapon actually count your use of elemental skill? Will it count all 3 uses of you jumping as a full use of it and give you the instant 3 stacks, or do you need to use the elemental skill button 3 times? What I mean to say, guys, is Xianyun has a constellation that gives her an extra charge of her elemental skill. So does this mean that if you use her elemental skill, because you're using her elemental skill button, does that mean you're using her elemental skill, giving her more stacks? Now, if you can add, what I mean to say is, with Xianyun having 3 uses of her elemental skill, can she stack all 3 of the, can she get all 3 of the stacks of Kagura's dance, right, and immediately gain this after all 3 uses or not? Yeah, we'll have to check, because I unfortunately don't have Kagura's Verity, right? So I'm actually unsure of whether this will work or not. So if anyone in the comment section below does have Kagura's Verity and knows a little bit more about how the weapon works, then please do say in the comment section below, because the way that Kagura's Verity works, I think it might work with Xianyun's elemental skill. Like, you do all 3 jumps and that gives you the all 3 stacks. It might work like that, or you'll only get 1 stack for using her elemental skill, right? Even if you, no matter how many jumps you use, because you're using 1 full use of the elemental skill, that will only count as 1 elemental skill use. So it either one of 2 things. Number 1, all 3 jumps will count as 3 uses of elemental skill and proc the effect instantly, or it doesn't matter how many jumps you do, it will still count as 1 instance of your elemental skill damage. Yeah. Now, in that case, guys, worst case scenario, if all 3 jumps don't count as 3 different stacks and they only count as 1, worst case scenario, you can actually still utilize the passive of this effect. Now, I know you're thinking, well, it's got a 16-second cooldown. Surely that won't, you know, be beneficial or anything. Now, the way Kagura's Verity works, guys, is I've actually seen videos on YouTube, and it turns out that as long as you can actually use your elemental skill, within 16 seconds of activating the effect, you'll actually gain another stack. Yeah. Now, obviously, Xianyun is blessed to have a 12-second cooldown, elemental burst. Yeah. Elemental skill, I should say, which is less than 16, provided you guys went to school and did your math. So, yeah. And here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. This is even better because of the fact that of 2 things. Number 1, Xianyun's elemental skill is a really great elemental skill to use in the overworld when you're exploring. It's great for horizontal and vertical traversal, right? So using Xianyun's elemental skill out in the open to keep the stacks going, right, is actually not a bad option at all, right? In fact, if anything, it's a good thing because you get to the fight faster, right? So you stack up a lot better, and because of the way that Xianyun's elemental skill works, it incentivizes you to use her elemental skill whenever you have it up, even during exploration. So honestly, Kagura's Verity, stacking this up for overworld exploration and stuff is actually not a bad option, and then when you go into a fight, you instantly have the 12% increased elemental damage bonus, right? But then on top of that, right, White Cloud's at Dawn itself can only be used while on the ground. If the Sky Ladder is not used again within a short period of time, Cloud Transmorphiguration state will end and enter cooldown. If Drift Cloud Wave was not used during her Cloud Transmorphiguration state, the cooldown of her elemental skill will be decreased by 3 seconds. Basically, what that mouthful is saying to you guys is if you use her elemental skill, right, but you don't use the Sky Ladder, which if you don't know what the Sky Ladder is it's basically her doing the jumps. So if you guys didn't know, if you use her elemental skill, but you don't use the consecutive jumps afterward, you'll actually end the elemental skill and it will go on a cooldown, except the cooldown will be 3 seconds less. Yeah, so 12 minus 3 is 9, which means if you don't use her elemental skill completely, right, you only tap it once, only do 1 jump, it'll have a 9-second cooldown. Yeah, so you can actually stack it up even faster if you're doing it that way. So, yeah, either way, Kagura's Verity actually seems like a great option. And the best part about it is it's a really good mix of base attack and crit damage. You get up to 608 base attack at level 90 with 66.2% crit damage. So this weapon, in my opinion, is probably going to be one of the best in-slot weapons for Xianyun. Moving on, guys, This weapon is all about elemental mastery, so no. Tertullia's Remembrance. Now, the way this weapon works, guys, is basically after you use your elemental skill, you'll basically gain a stacking normal attack percent increase, right? Yeah, which will stack up to 4.8%. Now, if you do deal damage with your normal attacks during the time that the weapon is stacking up, you'll gain 9.6% increased normal attack damage, right? So basically, you can instantly stack this weapon very, very quickly. Yeah. So up to 48% increased normal attack damage. I still don't think this weapon is going to be brilliant, and here's why, guys. Because this weapon is really good for normal attacking units. But like I said, with Xianyun's entire kit and her elemental skill having absolutely ludicrous scalings, right? Like beyond insane scalings on her elemental skill, right? The plunging attack specifically, right? You're gonna lose out on a lot of damage if you use the elemental skill. Imagine you have C1. This weapon isn't really going to be as amazing. Sure, the base attack is there, but like if you compare it to Kagura's Verity, the base attack is only like, what? 57 higher? I think it's around that. 57 extra base attack while gaining 22% increased crit damage. Like the 22% crit damage is better, right, than the increased 57 base attack. And this also only applies to normal attacks. Now, when you're using Xianyun's burst as a DPS, you're obviously going to be doing plunging attacks. So you'll probably do 2 plunging attacks and then a normal attack combo, and then repeat the process like that. So during her burst, the DPS of this weapon is going to go down even further compared to this, which, yes, you do have 2 passives, but that you can utilize completely, but I feel as though Kagura's Verity is just a lot better simply because the increased elemental damage bonus isn't restricted by only normal attacks. You can use it on her elemental skill, her elemental burst, her elemental, like her charge attacks, also her normal attacks as well. So it's just more versatile, and it gives you more crit damage, which in hindsight is actually better than Tertullia's Remembrance. So unless you're just going to be doing normal attacks on Xianyun all the time, which as a DPS I don't understand why you would, this weapon may seem great on paper, but honestly, guys, I wouldn't really recommend this weapon. Yeah, especially since the leaks are suggesting that Kagura's Verity is coming with Yai Miko, who's coming in patch 4.4 in the second phase of the banner. So, yeah. Now, we'll go on to the Fontanian weapons, guys. Cashflow's Supervision. Now, this is Rhea Thisley's weapon. Now, straight away, it gives crit rate, which is nice, right? And it does come with a high base attack, like I think 741 base attack, I believe. Yeah, with like 22% crit rate. Your attack is increased by 16%, and this entire block basically says when your HP increases or decreases, you'll increase your normal and charged attack damage by a certain amount for 4 seconds, and it can stack up to 3 times. So basically, and when you fully stack it, your attack speed is increased by 8%, right? This weapon does also have increased attack speed, but because of the fact that you're going to be weaving plunging attacks in, the attack speed doesn't really exist that much compared to a lot of other DPS characters. So this weapon's not bad because it increases the attack percent that Xianyun has, which is really nice because Xianyun's kit, even as a DPS, building attack percent on her, even on the goblet, is actually not a bad option. And we'll get onto artifacts, guys, but that's coming in another video. So we'll go more in detail into artifacts and stuff like that in another video. This video is just dedicated to weapons. So realistically, if you don't have a character like Farina on your team, guys, this entire weapon is just useless unless it's for the attack percent, right? Yeah. You could get hit and then heal yourself, but that's just really inconvenient. So it's not really amazing. So I would suggest if you don't have Farina on your account and you don't plan on using her, pulling for this weapon and even the next weapon is just not really worth it, right? Yeah. So if you do have Farina, guys, this weapon's not a bad option, but like I said, it's not doing anything for your plunging attacks, which you will be kind of focusing on during her burst and her elemental skill. So yeah, and especially if you go on to her C6, which you won't really be focusing on normal attacks at all at that point. So yeah. I mean, it will still be a part of your kit, but it's just not going to be as, you know, impactful. And then, guys, we're moving on to Tome of the Eternal Flow. Now, this weapon comes with a massive 88.2% crit damage substat at level 90, which is absolutely insane. In fact, even more than Kagura's Verity at 66.2%. However, guys, this weapon also has the same annoying passive, except it's arguably worse than the cash flow, simply because it doesn't give you as high base attack, number one, which doesn't really matter to be fair, and number two, this weapon at least gives you attack percent. This weapon gives you HP percent, which is completely useless for someone like Xianyun. Yeah. And also, on top of that, this weapon only exclusively buffs your charge attack damage. Yeah, it does restore energy, so it can help with your energy problems if you do have any energy problems with Xianyun, right? But if you're running the correct team, you won't really have any batterying problems with Xianyun. So, yeah. The problem with this weapon, guys, is it focuses solely on charge attacks, and I've already gone over the fact that Xianyun can't really use charge attacks in her combos that well, simply because, number one, they drain a lot of stamina, and number two, they don't actually deal that much damage. Sure, adding an extra 42% when you fully stack it up is nice, but, like, imagine putting this weapon on someone that can actually make use of this passive, right? Like Ningguang, or Yanfei, or Klee. They would use this weapon so much more because of the fact that they synergize with this weapon quite well. Now, obviously, guys, Xianyun's playstyle, you can afford to use charge attacks with Xianyun's playstyle compared to a lot of other DPSs. And here's why, guys. Xianyun's playstyle revolves around plunging attacks. Even as a DPS, you will be doing plunging attacks. Now, the best part about plunging attacks, guys, is they don't really consume that much stamina. I think they consume like 1 stamina, and that's about it. Yeah, which means during Xianyun's elemental skill and burst, you will be able to recover a little bit of stamina, which means you can use plunging attacks in your combo a little bit more. But obviously, Xianyun does have a bit of a wind-up to a charge attack if you've seen the gameplay, so it is still very sluggish, and I still wouldn't recommend it. But if you guys can make it work, and you do have Furina on your team to make use of the passive amazingly, then yeah, do go for it. In fact, one viewer from my previous video on why Xianyun as well as Furina will actually work together well. It the video right before this one. So watch that video if you want to know more about Xianyun and Furina's playstyles, or you know, complementation with each other. But one user in that video did actually viewer in that video did actually go into detail on how he thinks that Tome of the Eternal Flow is not actually going to be as amazing as something like Kagura's Verity. And I'm not gonna lie, I definitely do agree with him, simply because of the fact that even if you do use Furina, right, the passive is mainly kind of useless, even if you are weaving charge attacks in your combo, simply because it doesn't really do much. It just becomes a stat stick for your normal attacks as well as your plunging attacks. Because I'm not gonna lie, guys, in my humble opinion, you don't really want to be doing charge attacks with Xianyun, period, right? It's a very huge stretch, even as a DPS unit. You definitely don't want to be doing, you know, charge attacks. So the passive of this weapon is not really that useful, to be honest. Yeah. Especially compared to something like Kagura's Verity. And if you do want to use Kagura's Verity, right, you're not losing that much damage compared to Tome of the Eternal Flow, right? Because you have a decent amount of crit damage, which obviously is 22% less. However, the increased 12% elemental damage bonus works on absolutely everything compared to this, which was it's only going to be a good stat stick when you're doing other things, whereas this has a usable passive and a great stats as well. So, in reality, Kagura's Verity compared to something like Tome of the Eternal Flow is actually a lot closer than you'd think. In fact, depending on your team comp and stuff, Kagura's Verity as well as Tome of the Eternal Flow could actually be very interchangeable. Like, one would do better in, you know, certain scenarios, and another one might do better in certain scenarios. Now, obviously, there's a whole stacking up aspect of this weapon, which some people might find inconvenient, but like I said, you just use your elemental skill, and even in open world exploration, it's not bad because of what Xianyun's elemental skill actually is. So, yeah, it's honestly not a bad option. Like, out of these two guys, Tome of the Eternal Flow as well as Kagura's Verity, I would still recommend going for Tome of the Eternal Flow. Even if you do have someone like Furina, simply because of the fact that you're not going to be charge attacking a lot with this weapon. So, in that case, the passive of this weapon is kind of useless, and it's just a glorified stat stick. Which, in that case, you may as well go with Kagura's Verity. Sure, you'll have less crit damage, but you'll have higher base attack, even though it's only a little bit higher base attack. Plus, you'll also have a passive that's actually usable. So, yeah. Now, guys, on to the last weapon, which is Crane's Echoing Call, which is a Xianyun signature weapon. Now, this weapon basically makes it so that after Xianyun does a plunging attack, guys, everyone in the party, including Xianyun herself, will have a 28% increased plunging attack damage, right, for 20 seconds. Now, obviously, Xianyun can use this passive 100% of the time because her elemental skill has a 12-second cooldown, and that does count as plunging attack damage. So on that alone, she can keep it up. And obviously, elemental burst, she can use it 100% of the time as well. Yeah. This also does help with her energy restoration. However, guys, the energy restoration will only be given to her if other characters on the team do plunging attacks. And obviously, doing plunging attacks with other characters is not advisable with Xianyun as her DPS, mainly because of the fact that Xianyun, obviously plunging attacks takes time, like 1 to 2 seconds, which is about a half a rotation for Xianyun's normal attack, or even a plunging attack for herself, which obviously for her own base kit, doing animo damage and stuff like that is going to be even higher. So the second part of the passive is not really going to be that usable if you're going DPS. But the main part here is definitely up there. But the problem is, guys, is obviously this weapon isn't a great choice for DPS Xianyun. And the reason I say that is because, yes, it boosts her plunging attacks, but it doesn't boost her normal attacks in any way. And because it's attack percent, you're not really going to be getting a huge higher value compared to Kagura's Verity. In fact, the damage increase from the plunging attack here, as well as the attack percent, might actually be a little bit less or even a little bit better than Kagura's Verity. Because this has a crit damage substat, right, provided you critically strike, you might actually match this weapon in terms of damage numbers. Yeah. So, what I'm trying to say, guys, is a crit damage weapon might even match something like the Crane's Echoing Call in terms of plunging attack damage, and even outdo it in terms of normal attacks because of the crit damage substat. Now, of course, it does depend on your crit rate, but if you're going for a crit rate, if you're going for a main DPS build anyway, you're obviously going to want to focus on crit rate, right? So, yeah. That's why these weapons are really good. So, in order to realistically summarize, guys, I believe that the best option is actually going to be Kagura's Verity, simply because it's literally the best of everything. It's like a jack of all trades, really. It doesn't have the best of normal attack damage compared to this. It's not high in terms of charge attack damage compared to this, right? It doesn't have high enough crit damage compared to this, and it also doesn't have a focus on plunging attack. But the reason this weapon is so damn good is because it can do all of those things insanely well, right? Instead of the other weapons trade a certain specific amount of power for gaining somewhere else, but this weapon does really decently, not really decently well, but like decently well everywhere. So because this is like a really good all-rounding option, Kagura's Verity, and even if the 3 uses of her elemental skill doesn't count as 3 stacks immediately, and you do have to build it up, it's still not bad because of the fact that you can use her elemental skill during overworld exploration, and instead of it being detrimental to the overworld exploration, it's actually beneficial. So yeah, Kagura's Verity, in my opinion, guys, I believe is actually going to be the best option for her in terms of like overall DPS. Sure, you may get options like Tuletala's Remembrance and Tome of the Eternal Flow and Crane's Echoing Call in terms of raw damage in one specific point. But Kagura's Verity is just a great all-around option that it doesn't really lose out to everything in general. It may lose out to a specific thing, but it beats out other options there as well. So do put in the comment section below, guys, which weapon you think is actually the best for Xianyun. And in terms of 4-star options, Flowing Purity is easily one of the best craftable, like, ultimate free-to-play option right here, right? Flowing Purity. And it's also one of the best looking weapons in the game, in my opinion. Second in line with Tome of the Eternal Flow, obviously. But yeah, if you do have, like, Flowing Purity is a really good free-to-play option, provided you don't have absolutely anything else. And then, of course, Royal Grimoire, Blackcliff Agate, basically any of the crit damage / crit rate weapons is up there, and the Widsith as well. So, for 4-star options, guys, I would say Widsith, Royal Grimoire, Blackcliff Agate, Eye of Perception as well, and also, where are you? Flowing Purity. All those 4-star options are great. But in terms of 5-star weapons, guys, if you have any of the 5-star options, they will obviously have higher scaling compared to the 4-stars. So if you can afford to get a 5-star option, definitely go for them, right? But if you guys are unsure and you want to roll for a 5-star weapon, right, as a DPS Xianyun, right, I would genuinely say Yaimiko, with Yaimiko's banner presumably coming in patch 4.4 after Xianyun's banner, you can honestly save up for Kagura's Verity and go for it. Sure, you're not guaranteed it, but unless you have a load of Primogems or you're a dolphin or a whale. But if you do have the, you know, ability to go for this weapon, then I would definitely say go for Kagura's Verity. Personally, I think I will also be going for Kagura's Verity, right? And I will definitely make a video on Xianyun and basically tell you guys, like, do a gameplay showcase on how the weapon actually works with Xianyun. I may consider doing that, but it really does depend on other people's options and stuff, because I will probably be watching reviews and things on how Xianyun DPS will work with these types of weapons, right? And then I'll probably provide a more in-depth explanation myself once I do get my hands on the weapon. But yeah, this weapon is definitely up for grabs when it comes to scientific research. So I will definitely be doing that in the future, guys, provided the reviews of the weapon actually does go well with Xianyun. But anyway, guys, that's basically been the video. I have been Carvenus14 Instalam, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.